right, we are continuing our series of Peanut Gallery podcasts, interviewing some of my buddies who happen to have the same job title I do. And so a couple weeks ago or a week ago, we released the one on Abe Berg. And so now I got my buddy Ryan Law with us. Ryan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So Ryan, I don't know why I keep pulling on this. There, that's better.
That's better.
Hey, tell me about yourself a little bit. So what I did with the other guys was I had them be like, tell us about Ryan as a little baby. Like, where did you come from? Because you're not originally from Aylmer. And so
no, not at all. I was born in Saskatchewan, so I'm a Saskatchewan boy. So yay. So go Rough Riders, right? Like, because we have nothing else to cheer for.
What are the Rough Riders?
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry. I'm so sorry.
So I grew up in Saskatchewan. My parents are actually Salvation Army pastors. So I grew up as a pastor's kid. So that's what my life was. The church has always been my life. It's been my second home. It's always been that way. So growing up in Saskatchewan, I was there for a short amount of time. Then my family in the Salvation Army, as pastors, you get transferred. You don't get to choose and apply for jobs. You just get transferred. So we got transferred out to BC. So we moved out to northern BC. So I was there for 7 years and loved it. It was great. Had wonderful memories from that. Our church at the time was a great place for me and my buddies to go back, and we could play floor hockey after school. So church was always second home. So that's kind of how I grew up. Then we got transferred out back to Saskatchewan, and I was in Saskatoon. So then as a teenager, I spent life at the church in Saskatoon and grew up there, graduated in 96. Wow. I shouldn't say that. That makes me feel really, really old. But
dude, you're from...
Thanks for that math.
You're like from the 70s?
Yeah, I was born in 78. Like I know. Welcome.
Yeah, that's right, baby. Those 70s, baby.
Yeah.
Woo!
So I understand the
Patrick
80s.
is yelling because his hearing is poor and he thinks that...
He thinks that was a good thing.
Okay.
So grew up there, graduated there, and...
Slow down a little bit here. Can I ask what drove your parents to ministry? Do you have permission to share that story?
Yeah, if I can get it right, I hope I do. But my parents, it's interesting because my parents are a product of Sunday school bus ministry, basically. So their parents were like, let's get rid of the children, send them on the bus, they go to church. So my dad had an experience where he had a big family, a lot of brothers and sisters, different difficulties and stuff like that. But church was a solid place for him. One of the things I love about his story is that my dad says he understood what love was because of two old ladies that were at the church, that every time he showed up, they would grab his cheeks and say, "Oh, Donnie, it's so good to see you." And he experienced authentic love through that. And so the church became something that he enjoyed going to, liked going to. And so that was a part of his life. And he was in Manitoba. My mom was out in BC, and she would go to Sunday school, same thing, probably bus ministry or different things, would go there, got connected in with the church. My dad...
Just pause. The accent there, O'Donnell, what was that? It sounded very old lady-like, and I was just super impressed with the authenticity.
Oh, I can give you accents. I just can't tell you what they are.
Okay. It was really good. Like, it was like, wow, no, I'm seeing the old lady.
Yeah. So it's just that they experienced church, but their family life and all of the stuff had great difficulty. So when my dad joined the military, the actual army, he ended up being a part of that. That was there. He got transferred out to BC, was where my mom was, started going to church there, and the pastors at the church saw them, and they're the same age, and kind of like, hey, they would kind of connect, got them together, and they made a decision as the Lord brought them together to say, their family life is going to be solid. All of the stuff that they had in their life, they're going to try to make it better and do best and follow the Lord in that. They both got a call to follow the Lord. My mom said she never wanted to go into ministry. Even in the interview when they were talking to her, it was like, well, why do you want to do this? Well, I don't. Well, then why are you doing this? Because the Lord told me I have to. So it was one of those things, and they jumped into ministry, and the Lord has been faithful to them. I'm the youngest of three, so my brother and sister are both involved in their churches as much as they can be in different things, loving the Lord. And my parents are always just so grateful for that. But their heart for ministry and understanding that it's not crazy to follow the Lord, even though it seems crazy to the world, helped me understand my faith and go, okay, my parents are pretty normal, adjusted people and they follow the Lord. There's something to that. Right. So growing up in the church, hearing all the stories, all of that stuff led me into my own walk of faith, but still never wanted to go into ministry.
So back to your parents' bit. We use that terminology of the call all the time.
Yes.
How would they describe that? Like, what is that? Like, what? Because if your mom's like, I never wanted this, but I feel called. Like, how would you articulate that or explain that to somebody? Is it God speaking to you?
They would both say that God spoke to them. And it was funny because my dad said that God called him to do it, and God spoke to him and said, I want you to go be a pastor. And he said, but if my wife doesn't, or if actually they weren't even married at that point, but if Joan doesn't, I don't know what I'm going to do with that. And then my mom, at the same experience, the Lord spoke to her, and she's like, but I don't want to tell him because then we're not going to work out because whatever. Right. So eventually they talked to each other and went, oh
that's wild.
The Lord spoke to both of us. Okay. All right. Like confirmation then, and they move forward in that. So yeah, so that call for them would be literally God speaking to them. Whether that was an audible voice, I don't know. Or just an impression or whatever. It's hard to describe. Right. But that's what it would be, the Lord speaking to them.
And so would they say that listening to their pastor about who they should date and stuff, would that worked out well for them?
What are you trying to get at?
Just if my kids ever listen to this, I don't know. I'm trying to get at anything. I'm just making an observation.
Yeah,
Ryan.
The fun part about that story, which is interesting, the pastors that got them kind of together, introduced them, ended up in their retirement, moved to where my parents were pastoring.
Oh, cool.
And they got to pastor them in their later years of life.
That's super cool.
Kind of so that's kind of fun.
Okay, so you've told us a little bit about what it was like growing up Salvation Army kid, but I'd be curious, like, what was that experience like? Because most of us, our whole concept of the Salvation Army Church is Christmas time and bells.
Yes.
So walk to us, because obviously you don't work for the Salvation Army now.
No.
But walk through it, because I'd be curious to know a little bit about that, and I think a lot of people would be kind of like, so what would that look like? Like, what do they do?
So the Salvation Army, at the first and foremost, is a church. And that's where everything comes out of. The problem that has been, I think, over the past is that people haven't understood that it's a church, and they've understood it as a social organization, a food bank or a soup kitchen or a men's hostel or something like that, addiction recovery, because they do all of that. But that all comes out of their love for the Lord and a response of what they could do. Right. So the Salvation Army in starting back in England, way back in 1865, I think, wasn't meant to be a church. It was meant to go out and help and just to be a service to people. And then it ended up becoming a church because the church at the time didn't know how to work with people that didn't fit in with the bubble. So if you were from a lower class, if you didn't have a lot, you went to church and sat behind a black curtain. You came in the back door, sat behind a black curtain, and you were segregated. Well, that doesn't sound right to me. Right. And obviously it didn't sound right to them at the time, and started this organization to help people, to feed people, to whatever, and started this love for people. Then it turned into a church and went, okay, we're gonna walk away from that mainline church or whatever and start our own and try to help people know who the Lord is. And so that's where it came out of. So then all of the helps that come out of the thrift stores, the food banks, the Christmas hampers, all is out of our love for Jesus. Over time, that has become mixed up, and culture and society hasn't always understood that. Right. So growing up as a pastor's kid in the Salvation Army, I went to church every Sunday, went to Sunday school, went to all the kids' programs you do at church, part of that. But also then you would go to soup kitchens and help out. You would go to food banks, and it's all connected and all part of it. So Christmas kettles, I was a kid that went around with my dad, and you would collect those bubbles. You'd go back to the church with a bunch of people, and you'd count it all up. So I remember spending a lot of my evenings looking through coins. Oh, 1957. Oh, 1962. And going through and counting them all up and taking it to the bank. And all of that was helped to do different ministries. So it was church experience with the added social aspect of helping, which when I think of what we do here locally, when you guys have the Family Central, that was common. That was normal to me to be a part of that. So my dad, as the pastor of the church with my mom, they oversaw all of those ministries in the town too. Now, that doesn't happen in bigger cities, but because in the small towns we were, they oversaw all that. So the fun part as a kid was that you've seen all those vans and buses and different things that they use for ministry getting dropped off at school, and a kid in those vehicles And people going, oh, the Salvation Army helped you out. Oh, you guys are one of those families. Oh, and I was like, no, my dad works. What? Your dad works? Oh, he must be poor. He must. No, my dad's a pastor. He's like, well, what do you mean? Like, because people didn't understand too. So there was sometimes can you drop me off at the corner?
I'll just walk, Dad. I'm fine.
Yeah. So determining how lazy I wanted to be or how much humility I wanted to hold. Those were fun days. But it's the church. And I grew up mostly in the church, the same as any other church kid, pastor's kid, with the same fun and also the same. And if you're a pastor's kid or pastor family, you understand you're the last one to leave the building. That's been ingrained in me. And my kids now go, can we go home? So that's just been ingrained there.
My kids live 4 doors down, so they leave whenever they want. I don't drive them home. Sometimes they take the vehicle now that they can drive, and then I walk home. It's really an upside down society. I'm going to let them know that this is not normal. You guys should be here with me.
They should be there with you.
They should be here. Let's go. Yeah. Okay, so you graduated. I backtracked there a bit. So graduated, did not want to be a pastor.
Did not want to be a pastor. Farthest thing from my mind. Yes, I wanted to serve the Lord. As a teenager, I served at summer camps. Salvation Army has summer camps. And thankfully, the one in Saskatchewan was really close to town. So I spent a lot of my summers at camp, loving that ministry, loving sharing the gospel with others, but did not want to be a pastor because as a kid, I heard so often, you're going to be a pastor like your dad. You're going to be a pastor like your dad. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm going to fight that with everything that I could to the point where it became almost like a mantra. I'm not going to do that. So then graduating high school, I'm like, God, what do you want me to do? Because I don't want to do that.
Right. So God, here's 3 options of what I think I should do.
Exactly. I did that whole thing of like, okay, these are things I'm willing to do. But even then going to school, I didn't want to do that. I didn't enjoy school. I'm not a studious person. All of that stuff wasn't something in my life I enjoyed. So going to school after graduating, why would you pay to go sit in class to learn stuff that just you could go get money, right? Well, that didn't logically make sense. So working at summer camp, God just pressed upon me over and over and over again, I want you to go to Bible college. And I'm like, I'll go to Bible college, but I will not become a pastor. So I went to Bible college to become a social worker. So I spent 2 years learning how to be a social worker, finding out that I have to work with adults. Well, I just spent a whole bunch of summers working with kids. That's what I kind of wanted to do. Become a social worker, work with adults. I'm like, that's not cool. So after 2 years of that, I'm like, okay, what is it that I'm supposed to do? So then I felt the Lord, that call or whatever, to go into youth ministry. Okay, I'll do youth ministry, but I'm going to work for Youth for Christ, or I'm going to work for YWAM, or I'm going to work for somebody that's outside the church, not a pastor, right? So did that, worked towards a degree in youth ministry. Great. My last year, because I had switched with social work, and so my last year was a 5th year, only part-time student. Well, my church at the time that I was part-time at, or I was part-time student, so they're like, well, we'd like to hire you part-time as the youth pastor. I don't want to be a pastor, but I'm a broke student and money sounds good and I'm doing that stuff anyways. I'm volunteering at the church, spending all my time there. Why don't I get paid for it? That year, I just fell in love with it. And God was like, hey, this ain't so bad, is it? And I was like, yeah, that's pretty good. I like that. So then I graduated after that year, took a job up in northern Alberta and was there as a youth pastor there for 10 years.
Okay, can we back a step a little bit?
Yep.
Pressure of a pastor's kid. Because one of the things that I know Patrick and I have chatted about, and we've had some of these chats, like I worry about my kids sometimes.
Yep.
We're in a small town, but we're pretty public figures.
Yep.
Pastors are, that's just by nature. And so you don't mean, I would never want my kids to feel extra pressure. But what was that like going up for you? Like, did you feel that? Like, what was it?
I never had that pressure from my parents. Never. Let me put that out there for sure. Never had that from my parents. I don't know if my brother and my sister got it as much as I did. I think their personalities kind of let people know pretty quickly, you don't get to talk to about that. Like, we're not talking about that kind of thing. And maybe they did, I just don't know.
Right.
But to me, so many people came up to me. You're going to be a pastor like that. You're going to follow that. You're going to do that. And I just felt that pressure. Now, I felt that pressure from other adults. I felt that pressure from other youth. I remember sitting at Pizza Hut with a whole bunch of youth. We're sitting there talking and everything else. And one of the girls looks at me and we're talking about stuff. And she goes, yeah, well, Ryan, you don't have any problems because your life is pretty good. Why do you think that? Why do you have that in your head? But because I was the pastor's kid, because life was perfect, because everything was good, you don't have any life. So you don't even understand. I mean, I had my own struggles of self-identity. I had my own struggles of confidence, my own struggles of like, okay, what do I want to do with my life? All of those things, as teenagers all do. Am I going to marry somebody? Is that ever going to happen? Who would I date? Like all of those things run through. And plus then other challenges of life and difficulties of trying to figure things out. But yeah, the pressure was there lots. And so I was like, nope. But I never had the pressure of saying, I'm not going to follow the Lord. I have tons of pastor kid friends, because of my parents being pastors, you get to know them. A lot of them don't walk with the Lord. I know the pressure. I know the stats. So when I think of my own kids, I go, I'm praying for them all the time that they will follow the Lord. However that looks in their life, I don't care if they become factory workers or electricians or pastors or missionaries. I don't care, but follow the Lord.
Right.
So that's a big prayer in my heart, because I know the pressure it is. So do my kids feel that now as much as I did? I don't think so. But maybe, and they don't tell me, because I never told my parents. And so there's a real thing, and I think our churches and culture has changed a little bit. To backtrack, as a kid in church, my parents sat on the front. Church culture, you sit at the front, whatever, have the modesty curtain.
Were they on stage?
They were on stage with other people, and they sat up there, right? And so that was the thing. So I sat in the front row, free reign. I didn't have parents sitting beside me. So my buddy Matthew and I, well, for some reason, his dad was on stage, and so we'd sit in the front row. We were not quiet. And back then, you got away with a little more things as other people with other children. I have a flat spot in the back of my head from old ladies cuffing the back of my, you be quiet, you pay attention, right? I also have moments of hearing my dad's voice calling my name in the middle of a sermon. And I'd be chatting away with my buddy, making a bunch of noise, and be like, we're talking about the love of Ryan. And what? Like, so, or I get the look from my mom, like that was there. So that pressure, even to be perfect and present and all of that stuff, wasn't from my parents, but it was from other people. I had other parents tell me, like, you need to be a good example for my kid.
Right.
Why? Why do I need to be an example? You be the example for your kid.
Kidding.
How about you help them? But that pressure was there very much. So I felt that a lot. Probably one of the reasons why then fighting to be a pastor was pretty high.
So it wasn't necessarily like the job. It's not like you saw your dad and was like, I don't want to do that. It was.
Oh no, there's a part of that.
Okay.
My voice, as a teenager on the phone, sounded very much like my dad, very quickly. So people would call the house. That was back before cell phone.
That's a bit of a flex.
Yeah. I don't know about that.
Mustache in grade 9, whatever, guys.
My voice still continues to crack, and it's not a flex. But I pick up the phone and be like, hello, and then start telling me stuff about how him and his wife are having difficulties, all that stuff. And I'm like, hey, this is Don's son. Hey, this is not, no. Wait. And I'd have to like yell into the phone for him to stop talking. I was like, I don't want to deal with that. The other side of it, my dad and I would have plans to work on my car as a teenager, or we'd have plans to go somewhere or whatever. He'd get a phone call and he'd say, sorry, I got to go. That hurt. Now, was that, it wasn't intentional, but some guy just had an accident. Now he's in the hospital. My dad's got to go visit. Somebody's just died and he's got to go run out. There's a marriage issue falling apart. There's police involved. There's social services, all of that stuff. There's a fire in town. He was a contact. But I didn't get that information. All I got was dad's not here.
Right.
I don't want to do that. That's not the job I want. I don't want to do that to my kids. Now, when I look back on my dad and I look back on my life as a kid, I am so proud of my dad and what he accomplished, and my parents and how they helped out. Like, so proud of that I walk in that and go, I wish I would have known that information then, but I didn't understand, because as a kid, all I went was,
he's not here.
He's not here. So I blame the church. Not the church's fault. That's God doing amazing work that he got to be involved with. And I had a great upbringing. Like, my dad didn't abandon us. He wasn't gone, all that stuff, everything else. We had great times together. But in those moments that created that, I don't want that job.
Interesting. I often wonder what my kids are going to say in like 10, 15 years, because I'm not convinced as a youth you really understand even what you think of it. Because I look back now
it's
and I'm
be
like,
different.
Right. Yeah. All right, so you go to Bible college, you get this part-time gig, you're up in Alberta. Where do we go from there?
So I'm in Alberta for 10 years being a youth pastor. loving it, doing it.
When does the wife come into this, or how does that happen?
Oh, that's a different story. But yeah, so I'm in Alberta for 10 years, loving that job, doing that, thinking I'm going to be there my whole life. But in the back of my mind, I'm also praying, God, would you bring someone into my life? Like always wanted to have that. And in ministry, you don't have a lot of free time. How do you meet people outside of the church? How do you do that? My church at the time, there wasn't many people that I would say my age or anybody that I would connect with on that level. And that wasn't who I was, that God was directing, so it didn't really matter. But my wife and I, the first year of Bible college, we had a mutual friend who phoned me up after my first year and said, hey, you want to come work at a summer camp in Ontario and do a missions trip to Trinidad for 2 weeks out of the summer?
That's a pretty good gig.
Sign me up. Sounds perfect, right? A guaranteed job. I get paid. I get to go to Trinidad for 2 weeks. I'd never been out of Canada really in my life. So I was like, this would be awesome. Go to that camp, go to that summer. My wife is working at that camp. Now, we didn't really connect too much. I thought she was pretty. I thought she was gorgeous. I was like, I'd like to get to know her. She's dating some other guy. I'm from Saskatchewan. I'm not really confident. Weird. Everybody doesn't like me because now it's supposed to be this Ontario group going to the mission trip, and some guy from Saskatchewan is joining our group. So it was difficult to really make close friends, but we connected enough that we stayed in contact a little bit over the years. So fast forward those years in northern Alberta, she's moved to southern BC to go to school, to do different things, stuff like that. We start talking through Facebook a little bit, just kind of catching up, all of those things. And that led to us pursuing a relationship. And literally, I will say this often, that it was a miracle of God for God to convince her to move from North Vancouver to northern Grand Prairie, Alberta, where snow exists in April and doesn't leave till April. That is a miracle for God to make her decide to move up to there. So she moves up there, we get married, we have 2 kids, and that was a miracle. Absolutely.
Wow, that is a miracle. I often saw I had friends after Bible college, I had some friends from La Crete. And so the next summer or winter, I went up to visit them. And so you land in Edmonton. Yep. And then you just drive north. And then once you're like, we got to almost be there, then you just keep driving. It's like a 7-hour drive.
Yeah. So
and then I was like, so I get up there. And so my concept of Mennonites is farmers. And I'm like, how did you get lost and end up in La Crete? Like, this is so far from anything warm. Like, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Beautiful country.
Beautiful country.
Beautiful.
Absolutely
but
gorgeous.
What a crazy far north place.
Yep.
It's a whole different world. All right, so God did a miracle in your life, brought you guys together.
Yes.
Fast forward, how'd you get from, you obviously left Alberta at some point.
Yeah, so we were there for, after 10 years, I transitioned from being youth pastor at the church to working with an organization called Rising Above. And they are an organization that work with addiction and street and different people that are struggling to get back on their feet. And so
why'd you switch to that?
Yeah, that's a long story.
Okay, that's fair.
That's, I mean, I do think it was the Lord moving in that and teaching me different things, but there was some humility that I had to walk in. There was some, some life lessons I had to learn and to walk back with the Lord and to reconnect through that. So that's maybe for a different day.
That's fine. Yeah, I like it.
But yeah, so ended up transitioning to working with them, which was interesting because I was like, my job at there, we had a used furniture store. So my job was to help them transition from their life that was rocky and difficult and not working to have some job experience.
Cool.
And have a job experience that they could put on their resume. They could go somewhere, try to connect them with other employment and try to get them back on their feet. And so working at the used furniture store, did that for about 3 years. And then my 4th year was kind of really, God was like, okay, I kind of want you to move back into ministry. But the cool part about working at the Rising Above was that I was hurting. I was in brokenness. And so working with broken people, their healing and their process helped me in my process of my journey. So it was really cool. So in that, there was a time where, and the director of that was a pastor at the Nazarene Church, and he just offered to the participants, hey, if anybody would be interested as you guys are walking and some of them are coming to know the Lord, if you would want to be baptized, we can set that up. So I go and meet with them, and I'm like, hey, I'm just wondering if I could get in on that. If I could be a part of the baptism. Oh, Ryan, I would love for you to help. That would be awesome. And I was like, no. I'd like to get baptized. And I'd never been baptized. In the Salvation Army, that's not as something that is really talked about much. Not that they disagree with it, but just it's not part of what they do. So he was like, oh, well, absolutely, right? So it was great. So it was really cool because we go out to the river, and I help the first participant to get baptized. And then he switches positions with me.
That's cool.
And so then he helps me, Pastor did it, but to understand baptism as the church and that we are fellow believers to walk with each other. It was a beautiful thing. It's cold in northern Alberta.
I believe that.
In a river in April, it was a little chilly.
They didn't have baptism tanks.
It's better in the river, right?
It doesn't sound better.
A little more of a sacrifice you got to put in. So, so through that process
experience.
was really cool. And so the Lord just really working in me and bringing me back to where I needed to be, just sitting in a furniture store. Then one day going, God, is this what you want from me? He's like, nope. So then that transition to move from that, he was like,
how do you hear that? Like when you talk about hearing from God, because this is where I think obviously people get excited because the concept, the idea of God speaking to us, like what an incredible moment.
Yeah.
But then people also look and go, did he though? So like, what is that process for you to discern that you would go, well, that was God, not just the burrito I ate last night acting funny to you?
Yeah, I've had a few of those.
Yeah.
I don't hear that audible voice that my entire life I want to hear like Moses. I want to hear that voice from God saying, Ryan, this is what I want you to do. I want to hear that. So I don't hear that audible voice.
I would take a burning bush even.
I would love a burning bush. That'd be great. I'd even almost take a fish getting swallowed to hear his voice, like just to know, like to hear that. So it's not that audible voice, but it is reading through Scripture is a huge confirmation through me. That I think that's the number one way that God is able to speak to me is to understand that. Even in my college graduation retreat weekend, not knowing what to do after that, all of that stuff, reading through Scripture and God just saying, wait on me, wait on me, wait on me. And it was like, that was God speaking. Is it his voice? It is his words. So is it a voice? No, but it's his words speaking. And so then with sitting in that store that one day, just going, okay, God, this is what you want from me. And just that impression on my heart. That there's more, that I have more for you. Is it an actual sentence? Is it God saying, no, I have more for you? I didn't hear that, but that impression is saying, yes, it is time for me to move you into where I want you to go.
Because one of the things I was talking with Aylmer when he was on with us last time was this idea of stepping when you're not sure. And like now, I think often people, when they talk about, well, you were called to be a pastor, they think that somehow like this one role, there was this clear God sent down a contract and God was like, and most of us, myself included, that's not the case. Would I say I feel called? Yeah. Did God say, thou shalt work at Mount Salem Community Church? No, like there was none of that. Yeah. And there's all these steps. And so I'm hearing a lot of similarities in your story of like, there's these steps of obedience where you believed that God was leading you in a direction and you trusted that he was worth following, even if you weren't sure. And I just feel like people downplay that in their own lives, and they downplay that risk that they're going to wait until God is 100% sure. Well, did you really? Well, I'm not sure if God really said it. Well, I'm going to wait then. And whereas I've heard this a few times now as you've shared your stories, like, well, and then I felt God or I sensed God or God called. And I think it's important for people to understand, because I think a lot of Christians certainly lose a lot of their calling because they don't want to risk anything. I don't want to risk being wrong, so I just do nothing.
And I think the difficulty, and for me, one of the things I grew up with, went through as a teenager, was the Experiencing God Bible study. And I've continued that with our church a little bit too. And I think it's important because what it speaks about is that it's not what's God's will for my life, it's what's God's will. And there's a big difference, because what's God's will is he is continually working. He's inviting us to join in with that. It's not saying, well, specifically, I have this major role for you and my will for you is this. And sometimes that happens. There are people that hear an audible voice, I need you to be a missionary in Mexico on this date, and you need to be there. And that happens. But most of us, I would say, we look at God's will and he's working and going, how do you want me to join in with that? So I look at my own life and I'm like, okay, so a lot of my life I have worked with children and with youth and those things. And it's been a blessing. They've enjoyed having me around. Okay, so there's probably some giftings, there's probably some things that God has brought in my life, so it would make sense to follow in through that and the giftings, and people have affirmed that, said that to me, like, oh man, when kids come around, they're really comfortable with you. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I guess they are, right? Like, and you see those things, and because so God's working, he's doing a work in the church, he's doing the work. If I went and did a missionary work in Russia and I lived there my whole life, God would still use me. His will is still for people in Russia to hear the voice or the gospel. But where is he working and that I'm going to line my life up with? So it's not God's will for my life, it's God's will, and I can join in with that. So God's calling me to join into the work that he's already doing. So then naturally for me, and this sounds really bad, but naturally for me going to the Salvation Army, it was natural for me to go to Salvation Army Bible College. That was an easy thing to follow through. Not to go to say that any other Bible college wouldn't have worked, but that was an easy transition to say, did God open a door or open a window and all that stuff for me to walk through? No, he said, this is what I'm doing. You want to join in with me? I want you to. But he does call us, and it speaks about this too, he does call us to have a leap of faith, to take that step. Now, does that mean it's always going to work out? No. Sometimes you're going to be like, ooh, I leaped the wrong direction. And that's okay. What do you learn from that?
100%.
But you have to make adjustments. I had to make an adjustment to say, okay, God, I'm going to follow you with whatever you want me to do. Not here's my list of 3 things that I'm going to tell you what I can do. I had to adjust and say, God, I am open to that. So I think that's the difference of understanding God's call or understanding where God wants us to go. We follow in with what he's already doing. Because if I tell God what he's going to do, that's actually really, really dumb.
Right.
Hey, God, I'm going to do this ministry. I want you to bless it.
Yep.
Why? If God's not working there, like, it doesn't make any sense.
Yep.
So I think that would be my take on that, if that makes any sense.
It's really good. I just think sometimes what we end up doing is we end up using those terms, and I know what I mean. You know what you mean. But because they've been so misused, and I don't even know if it's intentional, but everybody, just because we're using the same words doesn't mean people understand the same thing. And I think a lot of people outside of faith, when we use those words, they're like, what are you talking about? And so just
you don't speak Christianese when you don't speak Christianese.
Right, exactly. Yeah. All right, so you're Alberta, working for Rise Above, year 4, kind of feel I need to get back into ministry, should go to Bible college, and then from there, where? Or did you go to Bible college before that?
No, I went to Bible college first, and then, up in Grand Prairie, that's my wife and I got married and had our kids and all that stuff, and just feeling led to get back into church ministry. So I said to my wife, hey, I'm going to apply all over the place, but I'm going to ask the Lord if he can just have one, just one opening. So applied all over the place, different churches, different things, just seeing what was out there, availabilities. And there was one church in London, Ontario, that responded and went, hey, we'd be interested. My wife is from Ontario. She grew up in Ontario. She has a friend she went to college with that prayed for 10 years that she would move to London. I was kind of hoped it was kind of going to happen, right? So that church opened up and they said, hey, we'd be interested. We did some interviews, all of that stuff. And we decided this is where we were going to go, and drove our family across from Alberta all the way down to London, Ontario. My son had just turned 3. My daughter wasn't 2 yet. And we're driving across in our 4-door car and everything else and moved to London. But we didn't have a house. Whatever. So we lived with our pastor for a month, ended up finding a house that we were able to get in St. Thomas. And that commute was shorter than living in London, which doesn't make any sense. But if you live in London, you understand.
You get it. Yeah.
So lived and did that job for 4 years, and we enjoyed the church. But that position came to an end. So then we're like, okay, God, what do you want us to do? And I still don't know why that position came to an end. I still wonder, but I know, being here now and how God directed it all, why. I don't know what that reason was, but I know why, the end result. So we started applying at different places. 2 years before we moved to Aylmer and the job here, someone had told me about EMMC. I love Mexican tacos. And so you got to go to get some tacos. So we drive to EMMC, get some tacos. I'm like, yeah, we got to come back here. Driving through Aylmer, my wife goes, oh, this is a beautiful little town. We should move here. I'm not moving here. I'm not moving a farther distance from London to commute. 2 years after that, I am working at a church in Aylmer, and I am commuting from St. Thomas to Aylmer every day. So that job opened up, not really knowing.
So tacos brought you here.
Yeah. I mean, what else brings people to Aylmer?
For a Mennonite like me, that's an emotional story. I appreciate that.
It's a good thing, right?
Okay, so you moved to Aylmer. You're working Summers Corners Church there. How long have you been there now?
Now I've been there 8 years.
8 years.
Yeah, surprisingly. So
what does a youth pastor do?
Nothing. Eat pizza and play some silly games. That's pretty much what we do.
Sounds great.
It's awesome, right?
I have no idea why you left that.
Who wouldn't want to do that job? Youth pastor, started there as youth pastor, and interesting enough, coming from a Salvation Army background, and our church is a Mennonite background, and so why would they hire a Salvation Army boy from Saskatchewan out in Ontario? It's God. That's why I did it. And I remember sitting down with the interview with the pastor at the time and one of the elders, and thinking it'd be a half an hour job interview. 3 hours later, we're still talking at Tim Hortons and talking about all sorts of things and everything else, and just getting along really, really well. And I came home, and there was other job opportunities at that time. And I came home, and my wife looked at me and she goes, "You had fun, didn't you?" And I was like, yeah, that was a lot of fun. That's a good fit. So there was a job that I could have taken back in Saskatchewan, would have been closer to my parents, would have been close to my sister, for my kids to be close to their grandparents. Right. To me personally, that would be really, really cool. But we just, the big question was, that church would have been a small church, small town. I would have been by myself. And my wife said, "Do you want to do that, or do you want to have a team?" And there was a good team at the Summers Corners Church. And so we said yes to that, and did youth pastor there for about 4 to 5 years, where they started, as the church said, "We'd like to move your position from youth pastor to associate role." Not really changing much responsibilities, but opening up for other opportunities and stuff like that. So did that for a couple of years with that title, but nobody knew. Everybody just called me youth pastor. That was just what it is. And I called myself a youth pastor. That was fine. But a youth pastor just gets to speak Jesus to young people, and young people are far more open and honest and real than adults, because they probably haven't learned to put that wall up yet. And so you just get to speak into their life in a beautiful way. So enjoyed doing that. And then as our church went through transition, that lead pastor moved into a different ministry. Then we hired another pastor, and that didn't work. Mm-hmm. And so that fit didn't happen. And so through that process, God was like, "Okay, are you ready?" And I was like, "Nope, not doing it." Because every step of my life, and I've watched that, I went, "Okay, God, I'll follow you, but I won't be a pastor." Mm-hmm. So even going to social work, it was still ministry. Okay, then going into youth ministry, I was like, "Yeah, but that's not a full pastor like my dad." So I'm still different.
Because youth pastors aren't real pastors, right?
No, and that's the problem. My whole life I have fought for people to say the youth pastors are real pastors. And so it's a weird thing in my head, because I'm like, no. They are absolutely 100% real pastors. But in my head, I'm like, but it's not where my dad was. Right. So then even associate role, I'm like, yeah, but that's not where my dad was. So I'm still playing with God and saying, you can have all of me, but not that. And so then when that opportunity came the first time, and I was like, I don't want that role. I never did want to be a lead pastor. And so when the pastor that was there, and then that didn't work out, unfortunately, it put a burden on my heart for the church. No longer just for the youth, for the whole church, and say, okay, God, is this burden from you? Is this heaviness that for the church, and the church, there's some hurt and pain. There was other things that went on at the church. And so do you want to use me in that? Right. And I just felt like, okay. So then talking to other people and going, what do you think? And they're like, absolutely. Haven't you ever seen this before? Why haven't you seen this before? Well, you and I had conversations, and Patrick and Trevor and different things, like, why wouldn't you do this? Like, absolutely, it makes sense. And I'm like, yeah, but no. So then when I finally said yes, it was like, okay. So then for the past year, June, I became acting temporary lead pastor. And I put that term on there. I'm going to be temporary. It'll only be for a little while, right? But it was good for me to be able to go, okay, I can do this. The church, for them to like, okay, we can see him in this role. And then in March of this year, they all agreed in the church to vote me in. And they said, yeah, we want to. So, yeah.
What do you love about your job?
The opportunity to walk in people's lives in moments that you will never, ever be invited to in any other way. That's a humbleness. Whether that's walking with them in their marriage, they want to get married and you get to walk and do their marriage with them and you walk with them and journey that through with them and seeing that grow. Whether it's someone that has a baby and they want to dedicate that child to the Lord and you get to walk into that moment, whether it's a funeral or a life struggle or whatever, and they're asking you to come visit you at the hospital in moments where they're the most vulnerable, or at a funeral you step into families' lives. Those are hard moments and beautiful moments, but they invite you into moments that you don't get to see otherwise. Right. That outside of then being able to speak Jesus into people's lives, I love it. I was at an experience with my daughter. She rides horses, and I was at a barn where she's at, and one of the moms was talking to me and talking about all sorts of stuff, blah, 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 blah. And she goes, oh, by the way, what do you do? And I was like, I'm a pastor. And she goes, oh.
It's a conversation killer. It's fantastic.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Well, now I don't know what to talk about with you and stuff. But I get to say flat out, I follow Jesus and I'm proud of it and I work for him. Yeah. And let's talk about that. Yeah. And that, I mean, sure you can do that in any other job, but I get to do it constantly. Right. I get paid to look into his word. Right. I mean, it's a cool job. That's pretty dream. Like, that's pretty good. Like, so.
What do you love about your church?
When we moved to the church, we weren't sure what the church would be, if we would fit in. We don't come from a Mennonite background. We don't speak Low German. We don't have all that stuff. So I feel like we love tacos, so we thought, hey, it's going to be a good fit. But we weren't even sure. We're like, how do people dress? Like, our church going to be different? Yeah. We walked in, sat down. There's a guy over in the corner wearing a ball cap. This guy over there was wearing a T-shirt. The guy on stage wearing jeans. We're like, we're going to fit in just fine. But what we found very, very quickly was people love the Word of God. And they want to study it. They want to learn about it. They want to talk about it. I've been at churches where people are like, no, we don't talk about that stuff. We're at church. Why wouldn't you talk about what you just read in the book of Hebrews? No, we don't talk about that. You keep yours. I'll keep mine. Our church was very open and wanting to talk about it. Let's discuss it. Let's think through. I'm going to fit right in. Like, this is great, right? So, and there are people that do care about each other. They do love each other. As any church, they're learning what that means and how to do that. But they sincerely want to help each other and love each other. So, I mean, I'll brag about that every day. And it's just phenomenal.
That's awesome. Where do people learn more about you guys? I'm assuming you guys live stream, do all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, our church's services are live streamed, so they can watch them, can join in with them. We have a website. If anybody ever uses websites anymore, nobody does. That would be our two connection point, or walk in our doors and come.
What time
do
you guys meet Sundays?
So Sunday at 9:30, we have a Low German Ploditsch service, and people that speak that language.
You said Ploditsch pretty good.
I know. That's as far as it goes.
Well,
that's as far as it goes. That's
impressive.
Good. So then we invite people to join in with that service, and then at 11 o'clock, we have an English service. At 9:30, during our Low German service, we have Sunday school, so people can bring their kids and join in with that, and be a part of that and join in. There's usually every couple of months we eat together, and who doesn't like potluck or disco or tacos? That's a common meal. So if you like them, come and join us, because we will serve you good ones. They know how to cook. They know how to eat. They know how to do that well. So unfortunately, they take care of me, which is good.
It could be worse.
It could be worse.
Hey, thanks for you doing the community. Thanks for the role you take in your church and the friend that you are to all of our staff here. And so really have appreciated you. Thanks for taking the time to do this. If you guys want to learn more, lots of places online to find them out, or just go check out in person. I mean, there's nothing better than in person. And so with that being said, thanks for taking the time. Have a great time. We shall see you on the next one.
Sounds good. Thanks.